Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Well, great to kick things off with you this morning, talking about a lot of pressing topics that many people in this room are thinking about constantly. And as CHRO of New York Life, you have to wear many hats. You have to constantly be leading and transforming your workforce through organizational shifts. So I'm curious, how are you approaching employee performance and management as an HR leader?
Yeah. So what I would say, first of all, such a pleasure to be here today with all of you. So thank you for being a part of today. What I would say is we at New York Life are going through a little bit of an organizational shift. We are really trying to lead in a different way and help drive behavioral change throughout the organization. And one of the ways that we knew that we could really drive that change was by elevating our performance management practices. That's partially because the great thing about performance management is it touches every single individual in the organization. And so what that did was allowed us to redefine and help our employees really understand what good performance is. But what was really important was it helped us do a few things. It allowed us to really connect our employees with the business objectives. I really do feel like as the CHRO, my role and my team's role is to really enable the business and culture of New York Life. So really making sure we had alignment with business objectives for us was number one. A lot of times we find that in performance management, people are just listing all the activities they've done, but in many cases it doesn't necessarily tie to a business objective. So I think by bringing our employees closer to the business, people really understood how they were connected and driving the success of New York Life, which I think is incredibly powerful for an employee. We were very thoughtful and purposeful in actually branding our new performance management. We actually call it Impact. And that's really because everybody has an impact on the organization. It's probably just to varying degrees of that level of impact, and that's how we gauge performance. And as we shifted to a matrixed organization, we also wanted to make sure that feedback was core. Not only just getting feedback from your manager, but the ability to get feedback from your peers, other colleagues. And we've also implemented something that we're kind of rolling out as we move into year end, which is the ability for our employees to provide anonymous feedback to their managers. As I started out, part of what we're trying to do is drive some organizational shifts and behavioral changes within the company. And we all know, as HR professionals, core and center to that is the role of the manager. And we need them to lead and drive that change. So we need to be making sure they're getting feedback on how they're doing that. So, so we're excited about that new enhancement because I think it's important to get feedback from multiple channels.
Right. And going back to what you said about shifting to a matrix style organization, how is that a better fit for New York Life? And what does that entail? What do you maybe leave behind in terms of a management strategy that you might have had in the past? And what are you focusing more on now?
Yeah, I think that moving to a matrix organization, if you work for New York Life, this is a very common phrase, pace over perfection. And it's really about how we create better efficiencies. And by having a matrix organizations and having teams, not be a traditional product team, that team may now have somebody who is from our legal team, from our tech team. And by doing that, we have much more creative thinking. We have much more efficient and dynamic thinking on some of the business objectives that we're trying to desire. I think it does flatten the organization a little bit because I think that it's really more just about working in a new team structure. And I think that's been really powerful for us.
Right. And I know that when you set out with Impact, you were hoping to achieve 70% participation amongst employees, and now you've risen up to, I think, 98%.
Yes.
Nearly every single worker at New York Life is involved in this. How, as an HR leader, do you build culture around impact to get so much of your workforce on board?
Yeah, so very thoughtful around change management. I do say change management is, you can't probably leave a room, all of you, probably without hearing the word change or change management at some point. But it really is critical, and being very thoughtful about that. We did actually brand our performance management impact with logos and banners, so that, communications were critical. We partnered with our communications team, the marketing team, but then really it was about how we are supporting our managers and our employees as they stepped into this. So we have things like office hours, so employees could come they could speak to their business partner, but they could actually speak to the creators of the practice to ask questions. We held multiple sessions with our leaders and managers, and I think we're a very compliant organization, so I do think maybe that's a little innate to our culture, but we had really high uptake on that. I think there's also a lot of creativity. We're leading into Halloween, we're leading into our year-end reviews. We're capitalizing on Halloween with some campaigns around feedback is a treat, and we're going to be giving out little treats. And I think the other one is don't ghost your manager, because we really want our employees to be actively participating, because feedback, we really do believe, is a gift. That's something that I talk about often. It's the only way that employees can really understand how they can get better at what they're doing.
Right, and I love the Halloween inspiration there. I love bringing in, making it festive.
Yes.
But yeah, talking about feedback a bit more, through my own work, I see that there is a huge gap between managers and employees having the right amount of feedback. A lot of employees complain that they aren't getting enough feedback, or that it's inactionable, it's not quality. I'm curious, why do you see feedback as so critical? And how did you build that culture where everyone's speaking to everyone? And where does that drive the business for you?
Yeah, I think, I do think, if I'm being honest, I think some of this is we're on a journey. I think feedback is probably the greatest gift, but often the most difficult thing to provide. At New York Life, one of our greatest strengths is our culture is very collegial, very supportive. People use terms like caring, and we are really trying to distinguish that. What does that mean? So, for example, we make the distinction between nice versus kind. You could be nice and give someone feedback that really may be not as constructive because you want to be nice to that person because you like that person, but that's not actually kind. Being kind is actually really taking the time to be thoughtful about that feedback. And really the receiver of that to understand that feedback is always with positive intent to make you more effective and even stronger than you are today. So really trying to build that into messaging and really providing the psychological safety, and again, really spending the time to teach our managers a new way of thinking, and really teach our employees to a new way of thinking on receiving and giving feedback themselves.
Right, and cultivating that kind of culture of feedback, I'm sure it does take time. It is a shift. But speaking more, moving on to more talent strategies,
yes.
I know many people in this room are very tapped into AI and kind of where tech capabilities are going. It's outpacing a lot of companies. A lot of companies have a pain point when it comes to filling skills gaps with AI and technology. And so I'm curious, as a CHRO, as an HR leader, how are you looking at developing those technology skills in-house, both within your own current employee base, but then maybe also looking externally to find talent that already has those capabilities? Yeah.
So I think our CEO really, when AI kind of really officially hit the scene, was really big on, we want to be a leader, not a laggard. So we immediately formed an AI CHRO, really to kind of make sure there was institutional thinking around what AI means for our organization, how we really kind of develop digital natives within our organization, that's really important. It's not about particularly one group group understanding what AI is, while the rest of the organization is, may not be tech people, but they really need to understand the power of AI. I think as it relates to skills, again, everyone in this room probably is looking for tech and data skills. Again, that's not unique to New York Life. So as it relates to upskilling, we have a really close partnership with both our tech and data teams, really trying to understand the skills. And I'll touch on in a second that we're moving to really skills-based talent practices, but really understanding the skills. And we currently have a unique way in our tech team to build skills. We allow and provide stipends for our employees in tech to really develop the skills that they think are most important to them. What we are actually really trying to do is refine that right now to take a broader view of it's important that they have skills they want to develop, but that we're also leaning into the skills that we need to develop. So we're currently working with the tech team on that. As it relates to skills themselves, I just mentioned that we're moving to a skills-based talent practices. We're actually engaging a third-party Eightfold AI who's really going to help us stay on top of what skills are emerging. This tool allows us to not only understand the skills of our employees. We kind of joke around at New York Life, LinkedIn knows much more about our employees than we do, which really is not that great. But really, how do we get our arms around what are the skills we have in-house, but really understanding what are the skills that are emerging. I joke around, it was last November when at least AI was being spoken about in earnest, and I think everybody was like, we need prompt engineers. I don't think people knew what a prompt engineer was 12 months prior. So new skills are popping up, and this tool also allows us to see what other organizations are recruiting for, see what's going out in the marketplace, so that we're steps ahead. We're not necessarily being reactive like we were last year when we were like, okay, do we have any prompt engineers in-house? What we found out was, again, we didn't have data on our employee base to really understand where we can tap into that. This tool is going to allow us to do that. But that's why I think it's really important understanding the skills you have, but really staying close to the emerging markets.
Absolutely. Right. And
I was going to say on the talent, the hiring. So yeah, really thoughtful on the hiring. I think New York Life, so we're almost like 180 years old now. So I don't know that New York Life screams sexy and cool per se. A lot of people, confuse us with MetLife or like, no, we're New York Life. But been really thoughtful about how we brand ourselves out in the marketplace. We're making significant investments in technology. And what we really try to do is we don't just have a marketing campaign or thinking about how we look to tech talent like we do other talent. We tailor that. We tailor like what it means to be on the tech team at New York Life, how you're going to be really driving powerful change, and given the size of our organization, potentially have much more of a meaningful impact than you may have somewhere else. So it is about really understanding your audience, marketing to that. And when we hire people also, especially in the tech and data space, we are thinking about followership. It's important that we also are bringing in people who are going to help attract other really talented people in that space.
Absolutely. And I know that we've talked a bit about skills as well. And I think skills-based hiring and learning has really had its moment this year. Everyone's focusing on that. And you've already talked a bit about upskilling. Is it mainly within the tech sphere that you're looking at with upskilling? Are you looking into other types of skills as well? Or is it mainly centered on that type of capability?
I think tech and data and AI and really kind of driving the digital native, being digitally native is important. I think what the skills tool is really helping us hone in on is maybe some of the skill gaps, again, really kind of being data informed as to what those skill gaps may be so that we can invest in other pockets where we need to. Again, with this tool, what's going to be really powerful about this is it's going to allow both our employees and quite honestly, prospective candidates to come in the tool's going to allow you to understand the skills that you have today, and it's going to potentially present you other places or other roles you could take in the organization, and maybe how closely you're aligned to being able to step into that role. And if you're not, what skills you need to develop to do that. So I think that's going to create, it's really going to empower our employees to really own their career. I'm sure maybe even many of you in this room, and if you were to have asked me when I first started my career, the famous, what do you want to do in 5 years? People don't really know. In a lot of cases, the people are limiting themselves because they only understand the lane they're in. And I think this is going to open up so many other opportunities for our employees. So we're thrilled about the impact it's going to have on our employee base. And again, from a talent acquisition standpoint, how powerful if someone comes in and is thinking, I'm going to apply for this job, and we're now able to say, you also are very qualified to potentially do these 3 jobs. I think also from a prospective candidate standpoint, that's going to also be very powerful.
Right. And as you mentioned earlier, you're working with a nearly 180-year legacy brand. It's very historic, and a huge part of being an HR leader is being a storyteller. There's a lot of power behind that in translating your employer brand to potential talent. So I'm curious, how are you doing that? How are you translating New York Life's brand to potential employees? And do you have to balance tradition of such a legacy brand with what your company is focusing on in the current day?
Yeah. What I would say at New York Life, we say our culture is our best kept secret. Actually not really great when you're actually looking in the external marketplace. So it really is, how do you bring that to life for individuals? As part of our employee engagement survey, we provide our employees the opportunity to pick any 5 words they want to describe our culture. I would say I'm actually really happy to say the past 2 engagement surveys, diverse, inclusive, and collaborative were our top 3 words for the organization, which is really powerful. But it's really, again, like you said, storytelling. How do we bring that to life? Some of that is through real life stories. We have employee ambassadors, many of whom are in our employee resource groups, and kind of getting them out, really telling stories. I think we do have social media and we do have marketing. What we found most powerful is people hearing the stories from actual employees. So really been very focused of how we do that either in person or online. We also know, going back to the tech piece, we know we did some market research, really understanding how technologists determine if they may work for a new organization. And overwhelmingly, that was based on what is being said on LinkedIn or Glassdoor, but it's also about employee referrals. So really thinking about how that fits into your talent acquisition strategy and how you bring that to life. So getting more senior leaders, again, involved in storytelling, and really we're trying to, make sure it's no longer a secret about how awesome New York Life is. But
Right. And another talent strategy and question that I think a lot of people are thinking about in this room is Gen Z.
Yes.
The youngest kind of emerging workforce is coming out of college. Gen Z mystifies employers, they're confused by them. Yep. I'm curious, how are you attracting young talent, especially with the brand, like you said, that many might not recognize just from the jump? How are you translating your company and your brand to this young talent?
So we're really investing in our early careers program. So we just brought in somebody who's doing an amazing job and really elevating that. But I think at the end of the day, again, it's about understanding your audience. So the good thing is New York Life does good work in that it actually provides, safety at typically a person's most devastating moment. So I think there's an alignment because purpose is really important for Gen Z. Flexibility is really important. So we think about, we have a hybrid model. I think we were one of the early adopters of that, have been very successful with that. But even when we think about how we attract early careers, we tap into our Gen Z in-house, and we ask them what is important. What we learned are things like mental health is really important to them. So what's interesting is when we go to college campuses now, instead of doing a little 45-minute discussion on New York life, we roll out yoga mats and we do a mental health session with them, and really providing a unique way to make that connection. Those things have really paid off. The other thing we recognize is that philanthropy and really giving back to society is critical. We have this very unique thing, which is very special at New York Life. We have a floor that has 360 views of Manhattan, which is great. And every Thursday, we have what is called Cheers for Charity. And that is our employee resource groups will designate a charity that is important to them. You come up, you pay $15, all that money goes to the charity, and you get 2 drink coupons, and you get to socialize and connect. Because we also do think that while Gen Z like some flexibility, making those connections is also really important. So making sure we're providing a purposeful way for them to do that has, I think, had really positive results.
Absolutely. I think, engaging their sense of belonging, their sense of, they want new kinds of perks. They want things like mental health, as you had mentioned, and those wellness aspects, I think, is really important. And I guess, has there been any strategies with Gen Z that have worked particularly well within that, or any that have fallen flat, anything that you wanted to change?
I think for us, it's really about listening, and I think that we have to be dynamic and continue to be dynamic. I'm sure all of you do employee surveys, engagement surveys. We've really honed in and come up with a multifaceted employee listening strategy that allows us to really have our finger on the pulse and kind of, again, I think, sitting in rooms, probably more old school, and really hearing from employees what's important. I think a lot of it is also employees feeling like you're listening and you're responding to them. But I think for us, listening and responding and providing those forums for them is really what provides meaning to that group.
Absolutely. Well, so great to hear about everything that you're doing over at New York Life and your talent strategies. That's all the time that we have for this panel. So thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everyone.